This week will mark a huge step for conservatives on the Supreme Court. We're about to get an undeniable majority that our movement has worked towards for decades. Let's see what the next steps are. And with that, we'll bring in our panel. Alex Vogler is a former chief counsel to the Senate Majority Leader and former general counsel to the Republican National Committee. Thomas Jipping is a senior legal counsel for the Heritage Foundation. He's also the deputy director of Edwin Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies. Welcome to both of you.
Morning.
Thanks very much.
Tom, I want to go to you first. The Heritage Foundation has worked towards this moment for basically ever. What does this moment mean to you and the conservative movement?
Well, it's important to identify just what this moment is. This isn't so much about this nominee as it is this kind of judge or this kind of justice. The kind of approach that she has talked about to her judging is exactly the kind of approach that America's founders designed the judiciary to have. I think this is consistent with a more limited role for the judiciary, one that is more consistent with our separation of powers. And for that, I think all Americans should celebrate, because that limitation on government power and this design for the judiciary is essential for our liberty.
So, Alex, we talk about conservative judges and liberal judges and things like that, and I don't want to get too ahead of this, but you see with liberal judges, they are much more inclined, just based on data, they're much more inclined to vote with a political line than conservative judges are with their own party. So why is this the process, and why does it seem that conservative judges tend to remove all their political bias, well, I shouldn't say all, but most of their political bias when making a ruling, quite more than the liberal side does?
There's indeed a double standard here, and you've seen that not only in the way that the process has gone at the Judiciary Committee, where the judge performed admirably, I think, in response to some, frankly, sometimes silly questioning, and a lot of the criticism pushing back on why she wouldn't indicate where she stood in certain policy issues. A, fundamentally misunderstands the role of a judge in our process, and B, you've seen in a lot of the reporting her being criticized for that. You marry that up against headlines for recent Democratic appointments, and they applaud them for not wading into those waters. So it is a double standard. That's just the reality. But I think the judge appropriately has laid out not only her own vision, but intentionally and rightly stayed out of a lot of those issues in a way that's productive for the judiciary.
Yeah, and Thomas, nobody has laid a hand on ACB. I mean, she has just come back with everything, but the Democrats have really tried to get her to pre-adjudicate a lot of issues that they want the answers to now, which they know the answers from her already. So what makes her, let's break down some of her responses and why it was so important for her to stay completely independent and not make any prejudices on any cases before even getting, through the hearings.
Well, first, I think it's important that people understand that has been the consistent approach of Supreme Court nominees for nearly a century. When I was working for Senator Hatch, we did some research and found that, for example, 29 out of the 30 past Supreme Court nominees who were asked those kinds of questions declined to answer. And that's no matter who the president is, no matter which party is running the Senate or the White House. But it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the justice who Judge Barrett will replace, who gave the best explanation for that in 1993 at her hearing. And that's just, if you believe in the independence and the impartiality of judges. And remember, Judge Barrett is a sitting judge today, as well as we expect a Supreme Court justice within a couple of weeks. If you believe in judicial impartiality, and everyone would say they do, then judges should not commit to a legislative committee under oath in public as to how they would approach issues that would come before them in the future. If you went before a judge, would you want to believe that judge is impartial and is going to look at your case fairly, or that judge had already committed herself to how she would handle your case? I mean, I think everyone knows the answer to that.
Yeah, well, you, as the defendant, you could argue that any prejudice or predetermined notion from precedent, even nowadays, you could argue that judge is not impartial. But there's the other thing here, Alex. I want to take a look at ACB's opening statement and ask you a couple questions about it. Watch this.
Courts have a vital responsibility to the rule of law, which is critical to a free society. The policy decisions and value judgments of government must be made by the political branches, elected by and accountable to the people. The public should not expect courts to do so, and courts should not try.
It's pretty powerful saying that, basically get your politics the heck out of the judicial system. So what do you say to that, Alex?
I applaud those comments. I think we need more of that from the bench. And I think it was good for her to lay out that vision during the confirmation hearing, which for most Americans is one of the only times they will hear from her in that type of a context. I think it was well done, and it's one of the reasons that, notwithstanding their attempts to put any roadblock up, that her confirmation, I think, will move smoothly now that we have a pretty clear timeline.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so Thomas, she established her independence over and over again. So let's take a look at how she handled herself. Watch.
I chose to accept the nomination because I believe deeply in the rule of law and the place of the Supreme Court in our nation. I believe Americans of all backgrounds deserve an independent Supreme Court that interprets our Constitution and laws as they are written.
This is something where she's already been confirmed to a very high court, to a circuit court. So why is this such an issue for that they're grilling her over and over again, trying to berate her on things that they should have probably vetted the last time they confirmed her, no?
Well, it is amazing to me, and it is an indication of kind of where the politics over the judiciary is, that this is an issue at all. Why should we be having, I love to be on your program, but why should we actually be having, a national interview on a network about the very simple, basic idea that judges shouldn't base their decisions on their personal politics? That
shocking.
Should be as given as gravity. And so I think that speaks volumes. But Democrats and Republicans were speaking two different languages during the hearing. Republicans were talking about one view of the judiciary. I believe it's the correct view. I believe it's the traditional view that America's founders designed for the judiciary. But Democrats were talking about a political judiciary. Their judges, or their view of judging, is that judges decide their cases based on politics, based on personal views, based on what they want the outcome to be. And therefore, Democrats, that's all they wanted to know. What are your views? How are you going to rule? What political goods are you going to deliver? Two radically different views of the judiciary. And I hope people who were paying attention and watching the hearing saw that, because I believe most Americans would choose the traditional view of the judiciary. They know that that's the right one.
Right. It's shocking that what I saw from a lot of people on the left, that were questioning her was, hey, I want to make sure you're impartial. So, but you're not going to rule and overturn Roe v. Wade, are you? It was
Yes.
shocking to me. So, Alex Vogel, Thomas Jipping, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks for having me.